Greetings and welcome back once again. This is Emunah Y'srael, SOULONOMiCS 101, coupled with the Lev Project. The name of this video, right, is going to be, It Ain't Free, the cost of doing business. And I've, seen this conversation come up a lot. And for our people who are trying to return to cooperative economics, respecting one another, valuing one another. I spoke about this before, but it's a very important topic, and I can't stress it enough. That when we see stuff happening, or someone doing something, or you have a friend, a family member, a mate who is an entrepreneur, that person is on the producer side. The consumer is only worrying about how much does it cost me and how far do I have to get it and do I like it. But in order for somebody to produce it for you, they have to go through a lot. And oftentimes, I don't think that this is taken into consideration of what it takes. It's like having a mate and you go home. And they were there all day, and they went into the garden, they grew the food, and then they picked the food, and then they washed the food. It's like, who's gonna shuck the corn, do all these things. And they did all these things to get the food ready so that it can be on your table. And all you did was sit down and consume and cry about the fact that it's not warm enough, or it's not salty enough, or it's not enough pepper, or whatever it is that you're complaining about. This is a miscommunication between producer and consumer, because sometimes the consumer really just doesn't care. Now, it causes a problem and difficulty when this producer may be your family, like I said before, your friend or your mate, because they're looking for oftentimes a little bit more than, that's nice, or they're looking for support. And if you don't support them being their first line of defense, it's a little bit more difficult for them to be confident in themselves when they go out in the world. So we just finished over at the Lev Project. This is not just Emunah speaking. So we just finished over at the Lev Project this book, right? This is 30 Years a Slave from Bondage to Freedom by Lewis Hughes. I found it interesting as we were reading to the end part of it. Just so I said, it ain't free, the cost of doing business, right? So in this book, there is a paragraph named, I Make Some Money. Now listen closely. Listen, I'm going to get a little closer so you can hear this paragraph, because I'm kind of outside and the children are playing, people doing what they do. But take a listen. It says, as I was here for another year, acting as a butler, he's still a slave at this point. I thought I would try and see if I could make some money. That's the mind of a business person. They're going to see if they can make some money. He says, for myself, I asked Mr. Brooks, the manager of the works, because his employer rented him out, so I'm just catching you up because this is in the midst of a story, it's an actual story, if he could get me some tobacco by sending to Mobile for it. So he wants to do some business, but he has no product. And before he can actually do the product or do the business, he realized it costs. So he's going to ask this Mr. Brooks to see if he can get him some tobacco, because he's about to do his thing. He said he could, and on the fourth day thereafter, in the evening it came, I was anxious to get in the same evening. But Mr. Brooks said, oh, I guess you had better wait until morning. Then when you finish your work, come down to the office and get it. You will then have more time to see the boys in the works. He says, in the morning I was up early, and after doing my morning work, I was off to the Brooks office. When I went in, he said, there it is under the table. So he wanted the product. He needed the goods. So Mr. Brooks was his go-to individual. And let's continue to hear what he says. He says, there it was under the table. The package was so small I felt disappointed. $100 worth ought to be more, said I to myself. But I took it and went out among the men. I thought I would try to sell it at $5 a plug, and it could not sell it at that. I would take $4. So he chopped up his shipment. This sounds very familiar, right? He's like, I'm going to do this, and this is how much I'm going to sell for in order to make a profit. Ding, ding, ding. People are in business to make a profit. Most times, this is their living. They don't go to an employer. This is what they do to sustain, to feed themselves and their family. So not only does he have to make back the $100, he has to do something that makes the $100 worth it. It's not getting over, it's the compensation for doing business. Let's continue to take a listen. I must make something, for I had borrowed the money to buy it with. And I saw that to clear anything on it, meaning you made back what you spent out, I must at least get $4 a plug. The money which I borrowed was from 3 fellow servants who had been fortunate in earning some little time and saved their money. So the slaves used to call what they call hiring time. They hired themselves out Can you imagine after their works day was done? And for this, they would, especially on Sundays, they would be able to keep that money that they hired them, or they hired themselves out on time. So he borrowed it from 3 investors, and these fellow servants invested in his thought process. So now he's under pressure, right? It says here, the first man I met in the works bought 2 plugs at $5 each. And after I had been there about an hour, all was sold. And so he went to a good market. It was opportunity, it was location, it was marketing. He was a little fretting because he had to pay back this money. He goes with an hour, he's done. He's sold out. Listen to this. So I went back with a light heart because it's stressful. When you do that much amount of investment and you put all your energy, your heart, your time, your effort into it, and you're like, man, am I even going to make this back? Sometimes business is a gamble, okay? It says, Mr. Brooks said to me at dinner, well, how did you get along with your tobacco? I did very well, I said. The only trouble was I don't have enough. I sold it for $180. So let's listen now. $100 investment from 3 investors, he has to pay that back. And once he pays that back, he made $80. But check it out, he got $100 worth of tobacco, so that means he needs to re-up. So he's not necessarily pocketing his money. And this is a conversation for sometimes those who are not business people, who are consumers, will be like, yo, they made mad money, blah, blah, blah. He has to re-up at this point. He's not pocketing much because, like I said, he's going to give back that $100, and that $80 is $20 short of a re-up, okay? And he sold out in an hour, so you can imagine. Okay, well, said he, this is Mr. Brooks, because now Mr. Brooks is an opportunist. If you did, you made more clear than money than the works here. How much a plug did you sell it for? Now, Mr. Brooks. This is people who want to kind of get in your business. Well, how much you selling it for? You know what I'm saying? And so that they could see, you know, how can I get in there? How can I get a piece of that action? At the same time, drawing out his pencil and commencing to figure it up. So Mr. Brooks is a businessman. I had 36 plugs, said I, and I sold them for $5 a plug. Nothing more was said just then. But after dinner, because Mr. Brooks is meditating on it like, yo, this looked like a good enterprise right here. I want to get a little piece of this. Mr. Brooks is a European, I want to believe, European manager who was able to get this tobacco for him. And now he was like, let's see what he do. Now he see he a worker bee. Mr. Brooks trying to get hit off as well. So he wants to be that middleman, basically. It says, but after dinner, Brooks and 2 of the clerks went out on the veranda to smoke. When they were in a good way smoking, Brooks slipped into the dining room and said, well, that was fine. You got $5 a plug for the tobacco. Oh, yes, I said. So he's all proud. He want to tell him, yeah, you know, we did that. I did that because he went by himself. So listen to this. Tobacco is scarce, and they were hungry for it. It went like hotcakes. The price was not questioned. So we have business here. We have location. He's coming to them. He's portable. He transports the goods, and there was not enough. There was a high demand, but not enough supply. So he's in the right place at the right time. It says so. He gets to set the price, right? It says the price was not questioned. I sold at once. What is the prospect for selling more? Here, Mr. Brooks now. He asks, will you sell it for half the profit? If I furnish the tobacco, I tell you the man want to dig off in his pockets now. But sometimes when you don't have the capital to front it for yourself, which is the situation in his case, like we said, he had to give back the $100, only have $80, and he doesn't have enough to re-up, because that's how, when you're a little small business owner, it takes time for you to flip to actually get to the point where you're at even keel. And so I just want to stop here. I'm going to continue, but when you see your brother or your sister and they're making moves, don't just think they over there sipping on pina coladas and it's all good. Not when you just starting off in business. But let's finish out this story, because it ain't free, the cost of doing business. He said, will you sell it for half the profit if I furnish the tobacco? Profit meaning you cleared your expenses, and this is what you took off the top. I said yes. Why? Because he was in a precarious situation. So he sent the same day for a box of tobacco, about 500 plugs. So Mr. Brooks was playing games. It took him, 4 days the last time, but all of a sudden now you could get it back in a day when you think that you're going to get a piece of the pie. It says here, when the tobacco came, the box was sawed in 2 and 1/2 sent up to my room. I put some fellows out as agents to sell for me. Now this dude, he's really entrepreneurial. He was like, you know what? I'm going to cover more ground, and I'm going to be able to do this by putting out other people to sell for me. He called them agents, by the way. This is not my words. This is his. He said Uncle Hudson, who took care of the horses and mules at the works, John at the hospital, William head chopper among the 100 men in the woods. Each brought in 40 to 50 every 2 or 3 days and took another supply. So right now he's not fronting the goods. So whatever they're bringing in, it has to cover for the cost, and he's only taking half of the profits, meaning half, like I said before, half of what they clear. Sometimes when I had finished my work in the afternoon, I would get an old pony and go around through the neighborhood and sell 4 or 5 plugs. It was a mystery to the servants how I got the tobacco. So he had a secret source, right? But I did not let on that Brooks was backing me. This is his verbiage. You understand? He says here, in 2 weeks, we had taken in $1,600. This is cooperative economics. I'm not necessarily approving of what exactly he was moving, but I'm looking at the business aspect of what he's moving. And everybody was able to eat. This is what he was looking at. He says, and I was happy as I could be. Brooks was a fine fellow, a northerner by birth, and did just what he said he would. I received 1/2 of the money, so he got $800. Of course, this was all rebel money, but I was sharp and bought up all the silver I could find. So again, the North and the South was split. You know, this was during the time it's rebel money, so it's around Civil War time. They know that that money was about to be worth nothing. So he said, I didn't even play with the money long. I flipped it into silver. He bought up all the silver he could find. Just as we got on the other half of the box, because remember he said he cut it in 2, 1/2 went up, 1/2 went down, 500 plugs yielded him $800. He said Brooks received word that the Yankees were coming and to send all hands to their masters because they were hired out. It says, I was glad that I had made some money, knowing that I would need it if I gained my freedom, which I now knew was quite probable, as the Union forces were gaining ground everywhere. But the message ending my money making, and I prepared to go home to Panolia. Again, I wanted to read you that because when I read it at first, I'm like, man, this is so interesting. He's telling you about basically street marketing, but he's also letting you know that it ain't free. It costs to do business. And I just wanted to bring that message to you from one of our ancestors who have passed on, Mr. Lewis Hughes. Because today, as you're probably watching this on a channel that speaks about a lot of finances, a lot of business, you see a lot of people trying their hand at a living. A lot of people are leaving corporate America. A lot of people are in their homes. And they may be, like I said, your sister, your brother, your cousin, your mother, your father, your child. And when we look at one another and not value, especially if you see them working, especially if you see them putting in the work that it takes, and you're not just patronizing them, if you don't see the value, at least pass it on to somebody who will. But please, 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 let us stop with the hookup. Give it to me for free. Give it to me after you saw all the work, energy, and time they put in it. I am a fellow entrepreneur, soulpreneur, and I know how it feels. And as I finished up this book this week, I said, you know what, I'm going to share this story because it just perfectly outlines what it's like for somebody who's stuck in a space that they don't want to be, and they want to get to a place, but they need backers. And when you get those backers, you have to pay them back before you even eat. So with that message, I hope you enjoy that. My name is Emunah Y'srael. This has been SOULONOMiCS 101. And if you haven't read the book, definitely 30 Years a Slave from Bondage to Freedom is great. Or if you missed the Left Project, go ahead over to YouTube /Emunah Y'srael and you'll be able to hear the whole project as we read it. Be changed. 1.